Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can check the Mac Sports Show Facebook page and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page to find us there. We're also on the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great NES and SP shows. Our website is nessp.info. Check it out. Shows, info, stores, and links all there for you. I'm Mac with your co-host, the legendary boxing writer Jack Hirsch and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How you doing today?
Good morning, Mac.
Well, you're doing really good, I guess.
Good job by me. I was thinking of something else to say after Good morning, Mac, but I got kind of froze up.
You froze?
It happens to players in sports. They want to cut to the left, cut to the right. They think for that split second, and when they think, they're kind of lost. You know, sometimes you just have to do it instinctively.
Yes, Jack, definitely. I mean, we're up here. We're in the middle. We got a little snow again last night. I don't know about if you guys did, but it seems like it's snowing at least a little bit every other day. So winter is definitely here, and it seems like every night I do my other job, it's snowing now. So I don't know if that's...
I got to shovel, Max. That means I got to warm up before shoveling. It's not good to shovel unless you're kind of like warmed up.
Right.
Shadow box a little, you know, maybe I can go on the treadmill. You know, I loosen up and then I want to go out and shovel. So it's like a continuation of the workout.
So you're working out at least every other day now?
Oh, yeah, I work out all the time. The thing about it, Mac, with shoveling, though, I've gotten to the point when you get a foot of snow, I pay someone now. I can handle 6 inches of snow. I can handle up to 8 inches. So once it gets 10 inches more, I kind of hire someone because you just pick it up, put it down. I have 2 different type of shovels. A heavy one where you pick up heavy snow, and that's heavy enough to just pick up. And I have a thing called a pusher. You kind of just push the snow. And I got an icebreaker, Mac, where you chop.
Oh, the old icebreaker. Yes, sir. I remember that. Especially
like if Kansas City Chief fans, the chop.
Yeah, right, exactly. There you go. There you go. Well, hopefully you have a little bit more luck chopping the ice than Kansas City did chopping the Buccaneers. So let's get to our sports update real quick here, Jack. We'll start with hockey. And today, folks, is our hockey review day. We'll have on Carter B., one of the most knowledgeable guys I know about the National Hockey League. We'll also have, for you boxing fans, and I know there's a lot of them out there, boxing icon, Iceman John Scully will be joining us about 8:30, so stay tuned for that. So let's get to our standings in hockey, Jack. Right now in the Central Division, the top 4, the Lightning, the Panthers, Chicago, and the Blue Hawks. And in the West, we have the Golden Knights. We have the Blues, the Avalanche, and Coyotes. In the North, Toronto, the Canadiens, and the Oilers are up there in the top 3. And in the East, Jack, we have the Bruins, the Flyers, Washington, and Islanders with the last 2 wins have moved into 4th. Last night, Toronto beat the Canadiens 4-2. And the Bruins beat the Rangers 3-2. For the Bruins, Marchand, Bork, and Wagner had a goal each. And for the Rangers, Gauthier and Rooney score a goal apiece. Today, the Islanders are playing the Penguins. So that's the East game for tonight, Jack. So there you go, Jack. That's the standing so far. It's very early in the season, but it looks like there are some teams that are just up near the top and are going to be hard to move, especially Tampa Bay, and the Golden Knights.
It's a little deceiving, the standings, because of COVID. Some teams have played more games than others, and it reflects in their point totals. It's just a little, like I said, a little deceiving, because if one team played 3 more games than the other and they're up 4 points ahead of them, the team with the 3 less games obviously can make those points up.
Very true. In the NBA last night, Jack, the Raptors beat the Wizards, the Mavs over the Hawks, the Clippers beat Minnesota, the Grizzlies over the Hornets, the Bulls beat the Pelicans, the Nuggets destroyed Cleveland, Lakers squeezed by, the Thunder and the Nets shoot past the Pacers 104-94. You had Kyrie with 35 points and 8 assists, Harden with only 19 points but had 11 rebounds. So the Nets looked like played a little defense last night, unless the Pacers were just, not shooting well, Jack. And Kyrie picks up his assists a little bit. Harden looks like he's turning his game around, where he's playing more of a team game than just shooting the ball all the time, Jack.
No, Harden, to his credit, has been all about team since coming to the Nets. Kyrie Irving went 17 for 17 from the foul line. It's deceiving sometimes, the point totals, because you have to look how many shots one player took compared to the other one. But this was the first time in 7 games that the Nets held an opponent to under 100 points. And it was a very conscious effort to play defense. Any team that has been as embarrassed as the Nets were against the Pistons a couple of nights ago, when the lowly Pistons beat the Nets, they were embarrassed. So they were psyched against an average Indiana Pacer team. And they showed up. They played defense. They played hard. The team was really up for this game. But can they sustain it? The really good teams sustain it night after night after night. They bought into the defensive effort. The Nets bought into it against the Pacers. Are they really going to sustain it? I mean, I have my doubts.
Well, for the second game, it looked like Durant didn't play, Jack. What's going on with Durant?
Well, the COVID situation. Durant wants to play. He's being withheld. And when Durant comes back, it'll be an interesting element, because I, for one, feel that the team really should be built around Durant, that he's their franchise player. But the Nets haven't made that commitment. They're taking an attitude, the big 3 are all equal. And to me, Durant is the only proven winner on that team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with you. Durant, I think Durant has the best overall game than all 3, and he can score with the best of them, probably the best athlete also. But
let me cut in. Someone's going to say, but Kyrie won a championship. Kyrie with the Cavaliers didn't win. They were a losing team before LeBron. Okay, with LeBron, they won a championship. They're a losing team before LeBron, and then when LeBron left the Cavaliers, Kyrie didn't win afterwards. And when he went to the Celtics, they didn't win. And they didn't win last year with the Nets. Durant had Russell Westbrook with OKC. That didn't, and it's hard to win with Russell Westbrook, but he did win a couple of finals MVPs and titles with the Warriors. And Harden, of course, hasn't won with Houston.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see what happens, Jack. We'll see if they can get some kind of togetherness when the playoffs start. Because I agree with what Pag said yesterday when he said they're kind of just napping and waiting for the playoffs. And I believe he's right. I don't think they're really concerned right now about the regular season. It just seems that way to me. So in sports news, Jack, there's talk about Russell Wilson being traded and speculation that he would be a good fit at the Raiders. Now, a lot of people write a lot of things about where people are going to go or where they should go. So I don't really believe that he would be traded to the Raiders. I don't know if he would want to go to the Raiders. But there was some commentary that Russell made about being tired of getting hit all the time. I think he's one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the last few years. Their offensive line, they really have come away from the old ground and pound Seattle and letting Wilson do his thing, passing the ball and moving around in the pocket and breaking out. But their offensive line has really been terrible the last couple of years. And, of course, their defense is not what it used to be either. So it all seems to be on his back, whether the Seattle Seahawks win or lose. So I think he's frustrated. I think Seattle gets it together and starts building an offensive line, Jack.
Since 1970, Russell Westbrook has gotten sacked 394 times, more than any quarterback in the NFL. Russell Westbrook didn't say, "I want to be traded."
Jack, let me cut in for a second. Russell Westbrook hasn't been sacked at all the last games, Jack. It was Russell Wilson, but that's okay. Go ahead.
What did I say?
Russell Westbrook twice. That's why I stopped you. Go ahead.
Russell Wilson. Well, Russell Westbrook. Yeah, okay, I'm thinking basketball.
I know.
He's been knocked down a lot himself.
A couple times, yes, he has.
Russell Wilson, okay, thank
Yes.
you for correct. Russell Wilson, 394 times since 1970. He's tired of getting sacked. That's all it was. He wants changes made. He's upset that his offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, was let go at the end of the year. That's upsetting him too. He was very close with Brian Schottenheimer. Now, this hasn't turned into a Deshaun Watson situation yet. Russell Wilson has not demanded a trade, but he more or less let it be known, well, if they want to go in another direction, he'll understand. He doesn't mind. In other words, he's hanging in the balance. Seattle can, unlike Deshaun Watson with the Texans, to me, that's too far gone. They can reel Russell Wilson back in, but they've got to make adjustments. They've got to sit down with him and say, look, in the draft, we're drafting offensive linemen for you. We're going to sign the best free agent offensive lineman. We're going to accommodate you. It can be salvaged with Russell Wilson still, okay? But he's hanging in the balance now, and who would be happy, Matt? Come on.
I agree.
Sacked more than any other quarterback since 1970.
Yeah.
It finally gets you. You're tired of being knocked to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he would even mind being sacked as long as that they were making an effort, which it doesn't look like the Seahawks have made an effort to try to replace some of the offensive linemen that left the team and that there's no more running game. So I really believe that Russell Wilson will stay. But, man, the Seahawks have got to do something to
Matt, the New York Giants, when we think of their season, this past season, we think of the Seattle Seahawks game. What a defense. The way they pressured Russell Wilson, they didn't play like that against anyone else.
Yeah.
I have to tell you something about the way Seattle's protecting Wilson.
I agree with that, Jack. So we have that with Russell Wilson. And then there was a three-team trade, Jack, between the Mets, the Red Sox, and the Royals, with Benetti going to KC, the Sox getting Cordero and Winchow, and three other players to be named. And the Mets get an outfielder, Khalil Lee. So, Jack, again, the Mets are out there doing work, trying to make trades, and who knows? I mean, I don't know if it's gonna help Kansas City having Benetti there or not. I don't think that makes them a playoff team, but he's a great player, one of the best ones the Red Sox had. They no longer have him, and they got themselves a right-handed pitcher and another outfield and replace of him, plus the three players. Who do you like coming out on that trade, Jack?
Well, let's put it this way. In 2018, the Red Sox won the World Series with an outfielder, Benandi, Jackie Bradley, and Mookie Betts. All three of them are gone.
Yeah.
Just think of it. 3 years later, after winning a World Series, it's house cleaning. Bradley's not officially gone yet. There's always a chance he could re-sign with the Red Sox, but it doesn't look good. As far as Lee goes, he was the number 8 prospect in the Kansas City Royal system. I mean, I don't know how good he is. He could be a good outfield piece. He could turn into a top-flight major leaguer. Might not pan out at all. But the Mets scouting department obviously sees something in him. And we're at the point of the year, Mac, where the high-profile free agents are gone. You have to be pretty creative who could help, who might not help. Jackie Bradley, great glove, but what price is he going to come as a free agent? It just might not be worth it for the Mets to pursue him. And this deal would indicate that they're not going to pursue Jackie Bradley.
Yeah, I mean, but Eddie, like I said, is a real solid outfielder. So it looks like the Red Sox are doing a total reconstruct, Jack. They're not picking up players. It looks like they're going to start from the bottom up, especially with those 3 players to be named. I would imagine those are going to be minor leaguers. So it looks like the Red Sox are all in rebuilding that team. So We'll see what happens with that. The NBA will enforce playing the national anthem after the Mavericks owner, Mark Cuban, said he will not. The only thing that's interesting to me about this, Jack, is the NBA is probably the most, most lenient when it comes to certain issues, social issues. And for them to say they were going to force it kind of surprised me.
Yeah, well, we have our debate show Saturday, and that's going to be one of the topics, whether or not the national anthem should be played before games. And there's so many different viewpoints. Society has changed. Society has evolved. And we're more tolerant of certain things. Should we be more tolerant of things? It depends on who you're talking to and what it's about.
Right.
But we're going to discuss it. But Mark Cuban ran it by the commissioner more or less. And now Mark Cuban's getting a certain amount of negative blowback. And he's saying he was never against playing the national anthem. And I don't think anyone's against playing the national anthem. But we'll discuss Saturday, all the elements.
Yeah, folks, be sure to tune in Saturday for our debate show. As Jack said, that's going to be one of our topics. And one of us will think that it should be played, and the other one will think it should not be played. So that's going to be one of the debate questions or topics at our show on Saturday. Good morning to you too, Keith. Glad you stopped in and said hi. So, Jack, that's pretty much it for the sports. We'll get more in depth into the hockey when Carter B comes on. But we do a segment every Thursday, Jack, where I ask you to look in your crystal boxing glove and tell me the future about things that might or might not happen, and we call it ain't gonna happen. So you got to come out and not say, well, I'm not sure. You've got to make a clear, decisive.
You hedge all the time, Mac. I mean, come on. You name all the possibilities, and then when the one thing happens, you take credit that you mentioned it, because technically you mentioned it, but you neglect to say the other 4 things you mentioned as well. It didn't happen.
Exactly, Jack. Exactly.
You're telling me to go out on the limb. You avoid
No. We don't want to hear no indecisiveness, Jack. You've got to give us a straight answer. Okay, so this is before we even start that, Jack. Let's let the people know about our great sponsor who sponsors this segment. They actually sponsor Jack Hirsch. That's how good he is, folks. Because nobody sponsors me.
I'm honored. And they're not giving me any free stuff.
I know. Isn't that terrible? Isn't it terrible?
But they have a great product.
They do. The best. This is sponsored, guys, by BSTBreaks.com. From the best in wax straight to the pack. BST Sports Cards has it all. Join the phenomenon with the best sports card breakers in the business. BSTBreaks.com. Get $10 off select breaks and boxes when you enter the MACJACK code MacJack on the BST Sports website. Multiple authenticated jerseys, boxes, and more. And you know what's great, Jack? These guys there, they give back to the community. There's a great new line that's open for 2021. Don't forget to put in the code MacJack, MACJACK, at checkout to receive a special discount from BST already off their low prices. It's February. NBA is in gear. Hockey has started. The draft is coming, and BST has you covered. check out their link on nessp.info so you can go right to their store. So, Jack, let's get to the Ain't Gonna Happen segment, where, again, you're going to make some bold predictions. So, Jack, the Jets pass on the second pick to get more picks in the draft.
I'm becoming like you, Mac. I was about to say, well, it depends whether they get Deshaun Watson and keep the pick. I'm going to say going to happen that the Jets are going to move down, get an additional pick, more capital. They're going to think whoever they were going to take at number 2, they'll have a similar player waiting. In other words, I'm thinking if they don't get Deshaun Watson, they're going to stick with Sam Darnold, and as I say, they're going to move down. It's going to happen.
So they do have another first round pick coming up in that round too, Jack. So it's very possible. So that leads
down from number 2. It's going to happen and pick up an additional pick. Yes, an additional first round pick.
So this brings me to the next question, Jack. Jets trade Darnold for another quarterback.
Ain't going to happen. I mean, it's Sean Watson a bust as far as I'm concerned, what the Jets are going to do. I can't see them keeping the number 2 pick to take a quarterback. Okay? It's just because the gap between Trevor Lawrence and the rest is somewhat decisive. Okay? So I know there's talk about them taking Zach Wilson at number 2, maybe Justin Fields. And unless their scouting department sees something the rest of us don't, the question is, are they going to take someone else besides Sam Darnold?
Are they going to trade? Are they going to trade?
Ain't going to happen.
For another quarterback, you got Trubisky out there, you got Dalton out there.
Unless it's Deshaun Watson, unless they get Deshaun Watson in the deal.
The Chiefs suffer from Super Bowl loser curse, Jack, and they don't even make it back to the Super Bowl next year.
Well, that's an unfair question. I'm going to say ain't going to happen because they're not going to suffer from losing the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are going to come back strong. They're going to have double-digit victories. They were 14-2 last year. They'll be 11-3, 12-4, thereabouts. So that's not exactly Super Bowl fatigue. But even outstanding teams can get bumped before the Super Bowl. It doesn't mean they have a hangover.
Right, because the curse really is about the team not even making the playoffs in a lot of instances.
Ain't going to happen. The Chiefs will be a force next year, whether they get back to the Super Bowl or not.
Tom Brady gets fined for throwing the Lombardi trophy to the boat during the celebration.
Ain't going to happen because it was so funny. Okay, had the trophy, but I can't believe what he did. Imagine the trophy landed in the water.
Yeah.
And listen, the commissioner's office already, they suspended Brady 4 games for the air in the football when he was with New England. And indications are that Brady wasn't guilty. Okay, the NFL was petty in doing it, taking away a draft choice. Roger Goodell really screwed that up. Brady is so popular now, Roger Goodell doesn't want to take him on. Roger Goodell is scared of Tom Brady now. If he went head-to-head with him, he's scared of Tom Brady because America loves Tom Brady, and all he has to do is rip into Roger Goodell, who's not the most popular, commissioner.
Yes. Okay, so big band music will make a comeback, Jack.
What's that? Big band music?
Yes. The big bands. Big bands, like Tommy Dorsey.
Big bands. No, ain't going to happen. Matt, come on. The young people don't go for that stuff and so on. I mean, they laugh, when we talk about that. Come on.
Okay.
Listen. They're not bad, the young people. If you force them to listen to Elvis or someone, they might think Elvis is cool.
Right.
Okay, all that. But now we got all the hip hop, the rap, the young songs. Listen, I love the Supremes, okay?
Right.
But stuff like the Supremes, the Beatles, the Four Seasons and all that, You don't hear that music. Music keeps evolving. It's amazing the way it evolves. Every decade seems to give you different music. And are we going to go full circle with the big band? I suppose it's possible, but ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it happened. It happened in the '90s, Jack, when Zoot Suit Riot and all those songs came out, and California went crazy. Nick Foles ends up back in Philadelphia, Jack.
Gonna happen.
Wow.
Foles is the ultimate relief pitcher backup. Howie Roseman, the GM of the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is his guy. Carson Wentz reportedly is going to be traded any day now. They need a good backup, a proven guy. And Nick Foles is very expendable for the Chicago Bears. I could see him going back to Philly. And the Philly fans love Nick Foles. He helped deliver Super Bowl to them.
Yes.
So he's always going to be an iconic player in that town because of that. And he's the perfect backup for Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts isn't getting it done, in comes Nick Foles to save the day. It's happened before. It could happen again.
Yeah, and they actually got a statue out there because of the Super Bowl of Nick Foles. So it'd be interesting to see that happening and history repeating itself again, Jack. So we got Iceman coming up in a few minutes. But, again, every day we have something that we do that I love doing with Jack because I just love doing this with Jack.
How did I miss Kevin Johnson yesterday? I had his face in my head. The name was Mayor of Sacramento.
Yes, Jack. So, of course, we have our daily trivia question I give you all the time because of your great knowledge of sports. And
you got to change the wording, Mac. Good knowledge of sports, not great anymore.
I think it's still great, Jack, because the trivia questions I throw at you, for the most part, are almost impossible to answer, and you do get them once in a while. So this is going up your alleyway, Jack. We're going to do a boxing trivia question for you.
If I don't get this right, Mac, it's because it's one of these silly questions with the sanctioning bodies.
No.
Who held an IBF title? Okay, go ahead.
Well, this, I got to make it really extra hard for you.
But it's got to be a valid question.
Well, it is. It's a valid question, Jack, but it's not about punching. So, okay, so who was the famous referee in an 1896 heavyweight bout between Bob Fitzsimmons and Tom Sharkey? Of course, before Fitzsimmons went on to become the champion. So in 1896, Jack, there was a very famous referee who reffed the bout in 1896 between
Jim Corbett. Gentleman Jim Corbett was the heavyweight champion in 1896. He lost the title to Bob Fitzsimmons, who you just mentioned, the following year, okay, with a solar plexus punch. The Fitzsimmons Sharkey bout 1896 isn't talked about that much. I mean,
right.
Sailor Tom Sharkey, they talk about his two brutal fights against Jim Jeffries. They don't talk. But who was the famous referee? Could have been Wyatt Earp. Bat Masterson, the lawman. Those were the guys who were around, basically.
So I'll tell you, you are correct with one of those two, Jack. So give me your best answer.
Bat Masterson or Wyatt Earp? Oh, come on. Bat Masterson.
Oh, Jack, you had it first try. Yes. Wyatt Earp.
Wyatt Earp. Oh, come on, but Mac, that's not.
I'll give you 50. I'll give you 50.
That's not a famous fight in heavyweight history.
I know. That's why I gave it to you, Jack, because you would get it very easily.
Fight.
But it's a famous referee, I'll tell you that. The great Wyatt Earp. So anyway, Jack.
Yeah, Wyatt was a famous lawman or whatever.
Exactly. But he was a famous referee too, Jack, early on. So anyway, Jack, I'll give you 50% because you were right in the ballpark. I don't even believe you came that close. I know you know your stuff, so I had to make it a little difficult for you.
Yeah,
so.
well, what happened? Yeah, because Bob Fitzsimmons won it, like I said, the heavyweight title a year later in Carson City, Nevada. against Jim Corbett, and then he lost the heavyweight title in 1899 to Jim Jeffries.
Right. So I mean, we'll. It's interesting. I would never got that, Jack. Not in a million years. I didn't even know why. I didn't even know Wyatt Earp was involved in boxing. I thought he was just doing his thing, you know. So,
well, you want to hear something funny with boxing referees? In 1910, when Jack Johnson fought Jim Jeffries, they brought Jim Jeffries out of retirement, out of his 6-year retirement, to face Jack Johnson because Jack Johnson was an African-American heavyweight champion who was very unpopular, the way he flaunted everything, ran around with white women, taunted white opponents. So they wanted to knock him off. So the promoter was Tex Rickard.
Right.
So Tex Rickard offered President Theodore Roosevelt the opportunity to referee the fight. And it wasn't a gimmick invitation.
Really?
It was a real invitation, but President Roosevelt didn't want to referee the fight. So Tex Rickard, the promoter, actually wound up refereeing the fight.
Wow, that's pretty interesting, Jack. I didn't know that either. See, that's why when I do a trivia question for you in boxing, I got to make it as hard as possible, and you still get at least you're right in the ballpark with one of those other two. So, folks, we have the Iceman scheduled to come in soon. He hasn't joined us yet. So, Jack, a couple things that I wanted to touch on with you as far as sports in general goes here. The American League East in baseball, right? You got the Yankees, who I guess will be the favorites again. They have Paxton on the market right now. They say the Blue Jays are interested in picking up. They're one of the bidders that are interested in Paxton. And the Blue Jays right now are a very dangerous team, right? I mean, they got a great offensive team right now. They got a good, but the only thing they're lacking is pitching. I mean, I don't think Paxton is the answer for the Yankees, but will it be the answer for the Blue Jays to get them over the top and take the division this year?
Well, I'm going to tell you what hurt the Blue Jays a little. They had to outbid the Mets for George Springer.
Right.
Okay, so they gave Springer a 6-year deal at $25 million a year, more of an obligation than they wanted to do. Okay, so that affects their ability to sign other players because, listen, behind the scenes, teams sit down and they look at what their revenue is because they want to make money at the end of the day. I mean, winning is extremely important, but making money and not losing money is extremely important. And to make a meaningful financial obligation beyond what they did with George Springer, it might not be a viable thing to do. That Paxton is on the market this long is kind of a surprise because he was a very, before getting hurt with the Yankees, he's a very lively arm coming from Seattle and so on. And if he stays healthy, he could really help a team. And I'm surprised someone hasn't signed him by now, but he would be a major asset to the the Blue Jays. I'm surprised the Yankees haven't tried to sign him. But then again, the Yankees have, beyond Garrett Cole, everyone is a question mark with their health coming back, all their starters.
Yeah, it's very, it's very true. I mean, again, last year was the Rays, Jack, who overtook the Yankees. This year, we'll see. It might be the Blue Jays. We'll see what happens. So that's very interesting. I just got
Blue Jays a serious threat to the Yankees. Make no mistake about it. And the Yankees do have these question marks.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jack. I think that the Yankees, well, I mean, they've been making little moves, quiet little moves. They haven't been making the big splash. They've been signing pitchers. If you go to the website, you'll see the latest on that, where they picked up another right-hander, I think it was. And they also picked up they're looking to pick up a little bullpen help again. So,
well, they got guys like Darren O'Day. We usually talk about it with Doc on the show Saturday,
right.
But the Yankees do have question marks in the sense, too. Certain of their players who they didn't expect so much out of when Brian Cashman got them, like Luke Voigt, American League home run champion, Gio Urshela playing like an all-star, at third base. Can these guys keep it up?
Right.
Keep
I
in
agree.
mind, we got more out of these guys than we ever expected, and they might fall back, down to earth a little bit. And what's going to happen with the Yankees, and also LeMayo, he could hit 364. If he hits 310, that's a good year. But the bottom line is that would be a 54-point drop off from a 364 average. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%. So, Jack, we're going to start getting our boxing going in here, our boxing report with the boxing icon, Iceman John Scully. Iceman as a multiple Golden Glove champion. I think it's 9 times, if I'm correct, Jack. He writes for boxing. He helps out boxers down on their luck. He's an unbelievable champion trainer. He's had a few champions that he's trained coming on. He's a former ESPN analyst. He knows all about boxing, and we'd love to have him on. Between him and Jack, I mean, they can cover anything in boxing when they're on together. So let's bring up the Iceman and see how he's doing today. How you doing, Iceman?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Hey, John, how you doing?
Not too bad at all, Iceman. I want to start out with you with probably the biggest fight coming up to me this month and this weekend. We got Joe Smith going up against Vlasov from the MGM Grand Center for the vacant WBO title this Saturday. Supposedly it's a co-main event, but it's not. I mean, that's the main event. You got, Comey and Martinez fighting there too. It's going to be on ESPN and Premier Sports in UK. Smith 26-3. Of course, Vlasov has been boxing a little bit longer than Smith has, so he's got like 45 wins. John, I know this is a big interest for you, right? I mean, you've got your own light heavyweight that you're working with over there, Better Beef, and this is a possibility. If Smith wins and your fighter takes care of business, this is going to be a huge light heavyweight fight. What are your thoughts on this fight? Both sides of the coin, John. Who do you? I mean, I think you would want Smith to win this, so it might set you up with your fighter. But Vlasov is a good fighter. He's been around a long time. Who do you think is going to win, and what do both fighters have to do to win this fight?
Well, I mean, I think I'll go with Smith. If I was going to bet, I'll go with Smith. His his momentum right now is extremely high. He had a huge win in his last fight. His power is undeniable. I just think at the end of it, he's going to come out on top. And he knows, obviously, that he's in a position now where everything he's ever dreamed about can come true. I mean, if he wins this fight, that the idea of him and Arthur is going to be on everybody's lips. Everybody's going to be talking about it, especially if he's very impressive with the power, which he usually is. So, that's other than with Arthur, obviously Bivol is probably the most important fight. But I think in terms of excitement and interest, I think a Joe Smith Arthur Better Be a fight would be a very, very sellable.
Yeah.
Well, this is Joe Smith's second chance at a world title. He did get a shot against Dmitry Bivol before. He lost the decision, but he did hurt the champion in that fight at one point. Did having that one title fight, is that going to help him the second time around? Because they say in other sports, when you've been there before, it helps the second time around.
Well, I mean, Arthur's got that kind of power where, it could help until Arthur hits him. And then.
No, I'm talking about Joe Smith's fight Saturday night. Is it going to help that it's.
Right. Yeah. The experience. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Just being there. I mean, a lot of it depends on the individual, but he seems like the type. I mean, his fight, he fought for a world title, but he also fought Eleider Alvarez and stopped Alvarez. Which was a huge fight. It was just as important as a world title fight in many ways. So, his experience over the last year or so, year and a half, has certainly helped him, psychologically, I'm sure.
And he beat a good fighter in Jesse Hart before that, a very good heavyweight. So I think Joe Smith is the type of fighter who I think all of us have been underrating all along. I mean, he's been overachieving, doing more than it's been expected.
Right. Oh, for sure. And he's interesting. Like I met him a couple years ago at a fight in Long Island. He was with his brother and his father, and a real like blue collar family situation. And we started talking, and he was a good guy, nice down to earth guy. And I just got the impression that he just loves this. Like he loves his position. He loves being involved in the game, and he's no nonsense. He's like a throwback fighter. It was kind of cool. Like he was there with his brother, his younger brother, and they're hanging out just like regular guys. It seemed like either the people there didn't know who he was, or they just were used to seeing him, and they didn't make a big deal out of him being there. But he kind of reminded me of like a real life Rocky, to be honest with you.
I got to tell you a little story, guys, that I picked up. It was at a Boxing Writers Association of America Awards banquet. And Kovalev's manager, Sergey Kovalev's manager, a light heavyweight champion at the time, Igis Klimas, was being honored with the Manager of the Year award. And they announced Kovalev from the audience. Joe Smith was at the banquet sitting at another table. And for some reason, I scanned the ballroom and my eyes came on Joe Smith. And I could notice him from another table glaring at Kovalev, and his eyes were kind of like wincing, like he was in a combat mode. And that was kind of revealing to me. Like in his own head, he was thinking, I'm going to kick this guy's behind, someday.
Yeah,
revealing to me.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. So again, Iceman, your fighter takes care of business. Smith takes care of business. We've been talking with Smith's manager to get him on the show after the fight, and hopefully we can get your fighter on one of these days after he fights, and we can kind of promote it.
Does he speak English, better be?
Yeah, no, he takes English classes. He speaks actually much better than he did before. Yeah.
Mac, if he doesn't, I can't help you with the Russian. I mean,
I can help myself with the Russian, Jack.
My parents spoke Russian, but I never picked up on it.
I'll have a dictionary to the side here, Jack. Try to figure out. But no, I mean that to me, and one other aspect that we haven't thought about, and maybe you have, Iceman, if this comes down to it's a championship fight between Smith and Beterbiev, maybe Canelo does move up to fight for the champ because he's not going to lose his belts that way. So maybe he does, seeing that might be a big fight for him. Maybe he moves up, and that could be a possibility too.
Well, I mean, he was there. He beat, if there was ever a time, it's when right after he beat Kovalev, and he was in line. He was right there. But I think it was very revealing. Like they went right back down to 168. I think I always say it. People think like, oh, so-and-so scared. So-and-so thinks this. So-and-so thinks that. It's not the fighter. The fighter will fight. It's the management. People who pull his strings and, have his career in their hands, they're not stupid people, and they're not going to risk everything they've built to fight Arthur when they really don't have to. Like, it's an unnecessary risk to fight Arthur now for Canelo. So I don't really see that happening.
Well, the Beterbiev has to become a bigger name because boxing's about risk reward, and Beterbiev is too big a risk for the reward they're going to get. If the reward becomes enough to make it worth the risk, Canelo absolutely would fight Beterbiev because then it kind of becomes a win-win situation. They have a return bout clause. If they lose, they get an enormous payday, and so it's and Canelo is so big now in the business. He can pick and choose opponents. Okay, he has a novelty of picking his spots, and very few fighters have that novelty. Very few champions. Right.
I'm looking to get that light heavyweight division going crazy. That's what I'm looking for. So I mean, it would be interesting if he would do something like that after some kind of championship. I want to talk to you a little bit about about Joel Diaz, all right? Because I know you're a trainer and you probably know Diaz. He says the work with Yilderman since he's been on a boxing for a year or so will shock the world as he takes on the WBC WBA champion Alvarez in Miami on the 27th. Being a trainer, is it better for you? I mean, he's talking about changing Yilderman's style a little bit, not so robotic, so that he's more more fluid. I mean, is Diaz that good or is a trainer in that position? Can you really change a fighter's style?
I mean, here's the thing, especially with a guy at a certain age, a fighter. In the gym, you could probably change his style, but to have it translate in the fight when things get deep and things get really hairy, it's tough to do. I mean, guys generally revert to what they know. They feel comfortable. So I think, a lot of it's just for the hype and things like that. But I wouldn't put too much stock in it. I mean, you haven't seen very many cases in history where a guy has changed. Like I remember, I'll give an example. I had a guy fight Floyd Mayweather's seniors fighter, and we were on a TV show, Knockout. And so we're getting ready to fight, and Floyd was teaching this kid how to, do, because I actually was in the gym one day. I watched him. He's teaching him how to do the shoulder roll, and he's all these things, and everybody's talking like, oh, Floyd's got whatever his name was. He's got the kid, and he's going to do all this stuff, right? I said, listen, that kid is going to do none of that. Zero. Like this particular kid was a banger, and I talked to the kid, and the kid's mentality was seek and destroy. I said, I don't care what they work on in the gym. When a fight comes, the kid's going to do what he innately does, and that's exactly what happened. And we beat him. And Floyd and I had like a thing on film after. I wish I still had the tape. We're joking, but he really thought he was gonna change this kid into like a Floyd Jr. Clone. I said it's not gonna happen. I knew for sure it wasn't gonna happen, and it didn't happen.
Well, that's a great point, John. The fighter might intend to follow what the trainer does. He's uncomfortable doing it, but he feels he has to listen to the trainer. But as soon as he gets his first crisis situation and he has to fight out of it, you're right. He'll do what he does best.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So when I watched you fight, John, you were a really good defensive fighter. You were a good counterpuncher. You kept the pressure on guys a lot from what I saw. You made them work. You were always working against them. So when you train a fighter, do you use your style as a tool, or do you go, as I was just going to say, or do you use what you see in that fighter that he does best?
Right. Yeah. No, my particular style, the trainer's particular style, has nothing to do with it. And I've seen, and I won't name them, but I've seen some of the so-called best trainers in the world training guys, literally training them how they used to fight. It's bizarre. It's insane. Like every fighter is an individual. There's no way in the world you're going to train every guy to fight the same. That's foolish. And I'm surprised so many top fighters, top trainers make that mistake. You have to go to the guy's natural instincts, to his natural strengths. And I'm actually, as an amateur and a pro trainer, I'm proud of that I have many guys, different styles, and they all fight different. And they all, some of them are very slick, some of them aren't. And you have to recognize who can do what. And even though guys might be good fighters, that doesn't mean they can do everything, and they can't do everything well. And again, I'm surprised so many trainers make that mistake where they have a carbon copy training method where everybody is basically the same. That's just unrealistic.
John Mack, the late Johnny Boz, who was an international book, agent, he said something to me that once, I remembered, it stuck with me. There's no such thing as who's a best trainer. It's a best trainer for the individual fighter. Okay.
Right.
So some guys might be the big name trainers. They might be great trainers, but someone we haven't really heard about might be better for that particular fighter working with him.
100%, a million percent accurate, positive.
So John, when you're training a guy and you see that, say he's just a great boxer, he's a natural counterpuncher, not like Rocky where you're going to start teaching him combinations that you threw. You're going to take what he does, what you feel he does best, and what he's more natural with, and you're going to try and prove that, and maybe teach him a little bit more about defense if he has no defensive prowess. I mean, I imagine you're going to try to work on his weaknesses too, but you want to accent what he does best.
Right, 100%. And some kids are naturally slick, naturally elusive. Some guys they just don't have that in them. Their whole thing is seek and destroy, and so you've got to build off of basically what their base is. Everybody has a natural base, and you have to find out what that is and go from there.
Well, I'm not going to name the fighter or the trainer because I don't want to go public with it. But I'm watching one fighter once, and his trainer's trying to teach him head movement, and it's not in the fighter's makeup to move his head much. I mean, it's just not with his style. But the trainer said, but we have to keep trying. And the fighter never did develop head movement, and that was predictable to me. They had to go to other, options. And sometimes you have a trainer, they keep working on something with the fighter, and it's just not going to happen. You kind of know the fighter's it's not in his nature to catch on to that.
Well, I'll tell you a funny quick story. I started training a fighter one time, and it was a female fighter, and she ended up winning the world title. And so she was very aggressive, like a beast, like very super shape, and always aggressive, always on her opponent. So I wanted to, refine her a little bit and teach her some skills and different things. So we worked on all these things, and she was doing well with it in the gym. And when she got in her first title fight, she did none of it. Like none of it. Like she couldn't transition. And I could see she struggled with it so much that she couldn't even do her original style. So we lost the fight. So we had a couple tune-up fights. And then for the next title fight, I said, listen, just do what you do. We're gonna do what you do, but we're gonna do it better. We're gonna do what you do, but we're gonna do it better. And she won the fight. I mean, like 9 rounds to 1, 10 rounds to nothing. And I should have done that in the first place. But that's, that was one of my lessons as a trainer.
Well, John, it's like, all the fights I've watched and going back to what we're talking about right now, I'll give you a great example. I love Smoking Joe Frazier. But match up against some powerful guy like George Foreman, that style ain't working. Maybe against Muhammad Ali because he's a bobber and weaver, you can keep pressure on him and keep Ali on the defensive. But somebody like George Foreman, he's going to wind up and knock your block off, which is exactly what happened. And there's no way you could teach Joe Frazier to bob and weave against George Foreman. That ain't happening. So A lot of it has to do with matchups, I would imagine, like every sport, John.
Right. Well, it's like when certain fights happen and they get 10 experts and they ask the expert, what do you think? And I say, some fights, like when Ali fought Frazier, it didn't take a boxing genius to know how Ali needed to win and how Joe needed to win. So some things aren't that hard to figure. And it doesn't take Eddie Futch or Angelo Dundee to give his insight. So some things are simple, but it's a matter of implementing it, and they're simple. Like I know Ali needs to box to beat Joe Frazier, but I've got to be able to show him how to do that. Right. Mental techniques and different things like that. There's quite a bit involved. It's not always as simple as it sounds or looks. Right.
I agree with that. So, real quick, of course, I'm going to bring up your favorite subject, Holyfield. Predicts Tyson exhibition fight will generate about $100 million. He might be right, John. He might be right. So it's interesting. Maybe it does help. Maybe it's maybe not that I would watch it, Iceman, but maybe it does help boxing in a way. It keeps it in the spotlight. Maybe it does have its purpose. I mean, I don't consider it boxing, being a boxing fan, but maybe it brings boxing to the forefront a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, it'll bring attention, of course, but I wouldn't pay to watch it. I'm not into it. Like, like Holyfield, and these guys are great fighters. Don't get me wrong, Holyfield and Tyson, but like people forget, like Holyfield's last 4, 5, 6 fights, he looked like he was 100 years old. Like he was getting trounced by Larry Donald and Bird, and I mean he was getting beat easy. So it's over. It's over, and I'm just hoping that none of these guys get really physically hurt. Like get hit with a good shot and get in a coma. Because if that happens, we're gonna have some big problems.
You're right, 100%.
Let's say Anthony Joshua gets by Tyson Fury. Anthony Joshua's chin has been put in question. So imagine Tyson beats Holyfield.
No, stop.
People are actually going to say, wow, you match him with Joshua. If he hits him, Joshua might go.
Stop
it becomes fun. Listen, to me, Holyfield Tyson's all about entertainment.
Right.
If you look at it as entertainment, not a serious boxing match with world implications, I'm not against, them going at it. If medically they can pass the tests, and I'm against the idea of them fighting because I think Mike Tyson's speech is just a little bit off, and I just don't like it from the medical viewpoint. But take the case of Holyfield and Tyson. Tyson is well off, but he's not filthy rich. Tyson can always make money off his name. Holyfield is middle class now. If a guy like Holyfield, after taxes, could clear $25 million, that's life-altering money. I mean, if all he has to do is fight Tyson, so do we have the right to tell him not to fight unless he's a time bomb that he could die in the ring suddenly, unless he has that type of condition? So, I'm kind of caught in the middle between that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against anybody making money. I just don't want any of that money to be mine. That's
I agree with that. And you do make a valid point, Iceman. If somebody really does get hit and goes in a coma, there's going to be a lot of people wondering why they even did this to begin with. Because you can't spend $25 million if you're in a coma. That's for sure.
Well, let me tell you, John. Well, we haven't talked about Mac John on this show. Fights go on too long. I mean, referees are stopping fights too long. Corners are not stepping in. The ringside physicians aren't stepping in. It's sickening to see the amount of fights that last too long. And when I cover show, I write about it in my report that the referee was too slow to intervene. He should have been pulled out in the corner. The ringside physicians. And the criteria of stopping a fight has to change. It shouldn't be just because a boxer could defend himself that moment. If a guy's taking cumulative punishment round after round, and the punches are adding up, I don't want to hear a guy is, way behind in the scoring. Well, he still has a puncher's chance. Of course he does, but he has more of a chance of dying in the ring than he does of knocking out his opponent. And fights are just going on too long, in my view.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that because just yesterday I was looking at Holmes and Cooney. Norton and Cooney. Now, you remember that. Yeah. How in the world that referee didn't step in at some point? Like
that's referee Tony Perez. But
right, it was bizarre.
That was a 54-second fight. It lasted 54 seconds.
Right.
I'm talking about the fights that go into the later rounds. Okay.
Yeah. You know what's tough?
Beaten up.
I'll tell you, as a trainer, it's tough because once you pull the plug, it's done, and you can't. And you're just like, as a trainer, you want to make sure you're seeing what you think you're seeing. And you don't want to pull the plug, and everybody's like, "Oh, what are you doing? It was okay. It wasn't that bad." But you know what I mean? It's a tough spot, and sometimes it looks worse than it is. Sometimes it doesn't look as bad as it is. So you definitely need to know that as a trainer.
And John, something? If they did that, what Jack is suggesting, and I'm not saying he's wrong, maybe the Foreman Ali fight gets stopped. Maybe, the Frazier Ali fight gets stopped. I know Mike Weaver's fight would have got
Frazier
stopped.
Ali was stopped.
I'm just saying, Jack. I mean, these fights might have been, with that thought in mind, they might have been. I'm not saying they would have been, but they might have been. And Mike Weaver sure wouldn't have won the world title against Big John Tate because he was getting his butt whooped the whole fight. But anyway, I know what you're saying, Jack. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I got to let you go, Iceman. We got another guest on. Thank you again for coming in. We love having you on, and you have a great day. And I'll be watching the Smith fight with you. I guarantee you that, Jack.
All right, guys. I'll see you next week.
Take care, John. Right.
Yes, sir.
So there you go, the great Iceman John Scully, and we got Carter B coming up next, Jack. We're gonna get out of here for a quick timeout, and we'll bring Carter B up with us as soon as we get back. He's scheduled to be in, so hopefully we'll get him on very shortly after the break. Thanks, guys, for staying with us. That was the great Iceman John Scully giving you the boxing info. We'll be right back.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you, too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Right.
morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch. And if you can't catch us during the week from Wednesday to Sunday, we're also on Spotify and Pandora. You can listen to the show and all the great shows at Northeast Streaming Sports, Jack. We just had John Scully doing a great job again, as always, for us covering the boxing. And next up, Jack, we have one of my favorite guests teaching us all about hockey and teaching us about, who's what, and more importantly, teaching me, Jack, how to pronounce the names of all the players that are out there that are not from the United States, which I need a lot of help with, Jack.
Mac, as long as you can pronounce the teams, you're fine. The names are hard.
Thank you, but me, I want to get a lot of things right. So let's bring up. Yes, Carter. We're gonna play a little theme song. I don't know why I'm so happy about that song. I mean, it's a crazy song, but I love it. I mean, it's like I got a little punk in there, a little hard rock, and of course, it's all about hockey. So I do enjoy that song a lot, and I do enjoy bringing Carter up to that song because I'm so excited about having Carter on here every week. So, Carter, there was some action last night, only one local, but let's kind of get into the divisions first. And we'll talk about the open shot that on goal that the Rangers didn't have, and we'll get into that too. But we have it's far from the end of the season, Carter, but we like to every week kind of update everybody what's going on. We're looking at maybe some dominance that's starting to happen already, and we'll go over like the top three teams in every conference, and give you a chance to give your thoughts on it. So Tampa Bay and the Panthers, they're in the Central. They're kind of up there near the top. That I would imagine they're gonna be battling there for first place. In the West, you have the Golden Knights and Avalanche, who both did really well last year. The Blues are in the mix right now. What do you think the Blues would have to do, Carter, to represent the West this year to get by those two teams?
Well, I think the big thing that they have to do, Mac, they just have to play their game, right? St. Louis has made two really big adds this offseason in Mike Hoffman and Torrey Krug. So, despite the fact they lost their captain, Alex Pietrangelo, in the offseason, this is still a really good Blues team, right? I think a lot of people, maybe underrate this team because they're in the same division as Vegas and Colorado. So, maybe St. Louis doesn't see the light of day that it should for most people. But this is still a really, really good team, right? They're coming off of a Stanley Cup win back in 2019. And, honestly, I mean, this team has been they've floundered a little bit of late. They lost their last game in overtime, but that's okay. You still get a point from that one. I think the big thing with the Blues is just, play your game, right? Stick to what makes you a good team, right? The St. Louis Blues have an identity of playing fast, playing physical, playing very, they're very tough to play against, right? Every time that you either go into St. Louis or you have the Blues coming into your building, it's never an easy matchup. So I think if the Blues, really want to cement themselves as a Stanley Cup contender and continue to kind of grow with the season as it goes on, you just want to keep playing your game and just make sure that no teams get an easy win against you.
So you have Toronto and Montreal in the top two over there in the North, with the Oilers in third. I mean, Oilers at one time, they were in top of the division not too long ago. Do the Oilers have a chance at taking over that division?
Taking over the division lead, I'm not so sure, only because of how well Toronto has played as of late. Even Montreal's been really surprising for me because, in the past, they've really kind of struggled to score goals. So, I've kind of wondered if they've been able to keep up with some of these higher scoring teams in the league. I think the problem with the Edmonton Oilers as of right now, it's definitely not their scoring, right? They have two of the best offensive players in the world in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who generate, or I would say around 90% of the offense for the Edmonton Oilers. And, as bad as that's going to sound, they score a lot of goals, right? They currently scored 52 goals in 15 games this season to boot. And, that should prove that their scoring isn't an issue. Their issue comes in their defense and their goaltending, right? They may have scored 52 goals this season so far, but they've also allowed 52, which is the second most in the Canadian division behind the Ottawa Senators. I think the big thing with the Oilers, right? I mean, I'm not so I'm not so sure about their goaltending. I think their goaltending could use a little bit of work. And, while their defense isn't the best, I think their big issue is in net. Right? Obviously, they haven't had an elite goaltender. They tried to go after Jacob Markstrom this offseason. He rejects them. He goes to Calgary instead. So I guess right now in Edmonton, you just got to roll with what you have. And I mean, Mikko Koskinen hasn't been terrible, but I just don't know if he's a starter in the NHL anymore.
There are big market teams and small market teams, even in this day of social media. And John Tortorella, the coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, which should have to call them a small market team, he's really raising hell there, benching star players. Now, if he were the coach of the Rangers, let's say, I mean, that would be plastered all over the place. The back pages, like, what the heck's going on there? That would be great soap opera stuff. So, I mean, what's going on there?
Right. And, the funny thing that you bring that up, Jack, is he actually did used to coach the New York Rangers back in, I believe he was there in 2013 before he got fired.
But he wasn't that bold as I remember, the way he is now.
Right. Yeah, and the big thing with John Tortorella, a lot of people might not know this, but he's a very tough coach to play under. I mean, he's had this, I guess he's kind of had this persona that, he's not afraid to bench star players. And, that could be either a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. I think the thing with John Tortorella is, you just got to come to the rink. You got to work hard. You want to, you have to have that desire to win, right? John Tortorella, he's so good at kind of pushing the right buttons on his players and just, getting the best out of them, right? We saw it in the playoffs before he got traded with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Pierre-Luc Dubois was having a really strong playoff run, right? He had a hat trick against Toronto in the qualifying round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. He looked really, really solid overall. I think the same thing is going to happen with Patrik Laine, right? A lot of people forget Patrik Laine has 3 goals as a Columbus Blue Jacket already. So, I mean, you could argue that, maybe you shouldn't bench him so soon, but there were rumors that Laine supposedly mouthed off, if you will, to an assistant coach. So I don't care how much of a big name you are, you can't be disrespecting your coaches like that. And honestly, I think it was the right move.
When does the trade deadline end? Because Ron Hextall was just hired by the Penguins as their new GM. He was fired from the Flyers 3 years ago as their GM. And the talk is that Ron Hextall has something to prove, okay? Because, when you let go from a team and you lose your job, you maybe become obsessed. So that would make him maybe a little more likely to make some moves for the Penguins to kind of put his stamp on the team as opposed to just staying pat and trying to play with other players, that the former GM had gotten.
Right. Yeah, Jack, I think the big thing with Ron Hextall is the fact that, I don't think he wants to tear down a team that doesn't necessarily have to be torn down yet, right? I think the big thing with Pittsburgh right now is they believe that they can still contend for a Stanley Cup as long as they still have Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang, right? Those 3 players have been arguably some of the most consistent and best players going back to 2010. So, I mean, I could get why they'd be a little hesitant to maybe trade some of these guys. I think at the end of the day, though, if the Penguins were to really fall out of a playoff spot, April 12th, which is the NHL trade deadline this time around. Yeah, that's under the modified 2021 schedule. So that could be a date that some Penguins fans are circling on the calendar, especially if they seem to fall, very low in the division and they really don't have a chance at making the playoffs this time around. But even then, I mean, if you miss the playoffs one time, I don't see any tear down coming. If you miss the playoffs 2 or 3 years in a row, that's a different story. And maybe, those star players would want to move on. But I think as of right now, I think the Penguins are okay, regardless of who their GM is.
So in the East, Carter, your anxiety has to be down a little bit, right? The Islanders have won 2 in a row, but the Bruins, even when their goalie decides to leave the net, and go toward the bench, they still keep the puck away from the Rangers. It was one of the funnier things I saw this week. So I mean, the Bruins are really solid. I mean, I we talked about the Flyers. They did bounce back against the Capitals. They still gave up 4 goals. We have our Flyers report on with our Philly expert, Pags. And I mentioned to him about, your theory about the Flyers, maybe when they get ahead, maybe they relax a little too much. He disagreed with it, but I kind of agree with you. You give up 4 goals, and that's going to lose a game a lot of times, even though they scored 7. What do you think that the Islanders or the Flyers would have to do to overtake the Bruins this year, who really are playing? I think they got 1 loss so far. They're playing real good hockey.
Yeah, I mean, they only have 1 loss right now through, I believe it's 12. It's 12 games played so far. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't think the Islanders are catching the Bruins anytime soon. I think the Islanders just have to worry about, making the playoffs themselves. I mean, they're right near 500. So I think if the Islanders can continue their winning ways, they play the Penguins tonight, who we just talked about, that could give the Islanders some confidence, and hopefully going forward, it could really send them on a run. If you're talking about the Flyers here, right, they're only 2 points back of the Bruins as of right now. The Flyers are 8-3-2 compared to the Bruins 9-1-2. So it kind of looks like these two teams are on different levels, if you will. I mean, like you were saying before, I don't know. I just look at the Flyers and I think of a team that, when they have the lead, they just like to sit back. They like to play that neutral zone trap, right? They like to kind of clog up the neutral zone, if you will, just so teams can't gain the offensive zone and really get anything together. And that's a good strategy up until a team finds a way to get into the offensive zone. And then at that point, you're kind of, you're looking for something to do in terms of, trying to get the puck out or what have you. I think with the Philadelphia Flyers, I mean, I think it's just, they just have to play their game, right? When the Flyers are on their game, they're one of the best teams in the NHL. I think we all know this, regardless of, my allegiances as an Islander fan anyway. I mean, with Philly, they're such a deep team. They can score, they can defend, they can really do everything. The problem is, I think Boston's better on paper and I think in real life than the Flyers. So unless the Bruins go on some sort of slump, I don't really see the Flyers passing them for first place. I think at this point the division is Boston's to lose. Let's put it that way.
Now, it's funny, we're living in the age of replay and watching the Bruin Ranger game yesterday on the 2 goals scored. I mean, the 2 controversial calls on the puck, supposedly either in the goal or not in the goal, going to replay. And especially the one with the Bruins, which looked like a goal and I think was called off and was said it wasn't a goal. But they're looking at the darn thing from every angle for 5 minutes. And it's never conclusive. If you have to look so many different angles, I mean, it just makes no sense on the replay after a while. Whatever the call is, you may as well flip a coin. I saw something in the Ranger Bruin game that got me to thinking yesterday. And if it got me to thinking with my novice hockey knowledge, I can imagine the more people with a lot more knowledge what they had to be thinking. Now, when you go 5-on-5, the more players you have on the ice, the harder it is to score goals. We'll agree on that. You open up the ice to less players, it becomes easier. So for the Rangers, they got it. There was a fight yesterday. Major penalties are called. Now they're going 4-on-4 instead of 5-and-5. That, to me, was more beneficial to the Rangers. Less guys on the ice at that point, and it played out that way, and the Rangers tied the game up. Couldn't teams use that as a strategy? They're not getting anywhere 5-on-5. Draw the other team into a couple of fights. Go 3-on-3. It could be a strategic move. That's what I would do if I were the coach. What do you think of that, Carter?
Well, usually, I mean, when fights happen, it's usually not 4-on-4. Usually, it's either a minor penalty or a double minor penalty that kind of cancels each other out. But I mean, like you said, I think the Rangers really they played well whenever they had 4-on-4 play last night. They played well in the power play as well. It's just the Bruins penalty kill was better, and I think that um, see it depends on who you're playing, right? I know that it might seem like a good idea to kind of force the other team to take penalties and kind of open up the ice a little bit. That's
Yeah.
fine. That you can get your star players out there, but if you're playing a team like Boston, who's one of the few teams that can match, if not outmatch, whoever you're playing, it's tough to do that because like yeah, you may be giving your team more ice to work with, but you're also giving guys like Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, Patrice Bergeron. You're giving those three more ice to work with as well, and that's always dangerous.
Yeah, I want to talk about the way the Bruin Ranger game ended too. This drives me crazy. It's overtime. The Rangers have a 2-on-1, and you see it over and over. Teams try to get cute past the puck. Why not just the player who has the puck, who's going in full force? He should try to score, and the other player on the 2-on-1 should be ready for any rebounds that the goalie stops to clean up on the play. So the Rangers coming in a 2-on-1 breakaway. They don't even get a shot off. The pass gets stolen, hit off the board, and then the moment later, it's all over. The Bruins are in on the breakaway, and the Marchand scores the goal, and it's all over like that. You see it happen too much on breakaways where teams try to get cute, make the extra pass, and it usually never works.
Yeah, right. And I think the big thing about 3-on-3 overtime, it's so important to hit the net and just force the goalie to cover the puck because we've seen a lot more in overtime now, right? If you even miss the net by an inch or two, that puck's gonna rim around the boards and you're gonna have a 2-on-1 going back the other way. It's so dangerous to I don't want to say make a mistake because I'm gonna sound like a perfectionist, but that's the truth. Right? The truth of it all is you want to take advantages of the chances you have. And I think that, you made a really good point of the fact that I do think teams are trying to get too cute in terms of passing the puck, especially in these odd man rushes. I mean, I play hockey myself outside of watching it myself, and I've always been a shoot first player, right? I've always been a guy who, if I have a chance to get the puck on the net, regardless of where it's from, I'm going to do it because, if anything, it makes the goal, it might even throw the goalie off sometimes, right? Sometimes a goalie isn't exactly expecting a shot to come from a certain spot. So I think the big thing with these teams is the fact that, they oftentimes try to pass the puck too much because I guess they feel like it throws the goalie off a little bit, and that's not always the case, right? Sometimes the goalie's not expecting the shot. Sometimes he is expecting the shot. You just beat him clean anyway. So I think it's easy to say that, you shouldn't exactly pass the puck in a 2-on-1. It's easy to say that you shouldn't be shooting in a 2-on-1 either. I think it's just so situational that, it depends what you're going to do, right? It's kind of a fluid situation, if you will. Guys are kind of reading the plays they're kind of evaluating the situation as it's going on, and whatever happens happens. But you just got to take advantage of your opportunities, and in 3-on-3 overtime is just so critical that you really can't afford to make a mistake.
And Carter, you're going to be one of the 10% people who are allowed in starting February 23rd to Islander games.
100%. I'm hoping I will be because my mom and I have season tickets. So
there you go. You get preference. Guys like Mac and myself, we got to be online 2 hours if it's playoff games.
Yeah, we got to make a couple phone calls before we get anything, Jack. So, Carter, let's talk about the I don't know if we call it mistake, but a missed opportunity, right? The goalie leaves, and the Rangers can't get the puck. I mean, the Bruins keep the puck away from the Rangers until the goalie gets back. I mean, how would you feel? Here you are, there's nobody in goal, and you can't get the puck away and at least take a shot from somewhere. I mean, you got to be kicking yourself in the butt over that, wouldn't you think?
I would be 100%. And Tuukka Rask actually had a media interview after the game last night, and he was joking around that he had to go to the bench and tell their backup goalie something, but it turns out he actually got the score mixed up himself. He thought the Rangers were up 2-1, and he was wondering why the coach wasn't pulling him. I was sitting there myself and wondering, dude, what are you doing? Get back in the net. It's a tie game.
Yeah.
But, I mean, people make mistakes all the time. I just don't know how you can make a mistake with a giant jumbotron staring up at you. I'd be looking up at that thing all the time to
Well,
see the score.
even if he didn't forgot what the score was, aren't you supposed to look over to your coach and your coach waves you to come to the bench? He took it upon himself.
Right. Yeah, that's usually what the plan is. But Rask actually said himself that he was wondering why Bruins coach Bruce Cassidy wasn't waving him over. So I guess he kind of took it upon himself just to kind of go to the bench and just to get that extra attacker out there. But I don't know if you guys actually watched the end of the game last night, but the Bruins players were actually waving him back to the net.
Yeah.
Like, no, don't come to the bench. Like, we're tied. So I thought that was a pretty funny moment for sure.
Yeah. Well, everybody makes mistakes in every sport. I mean, they forget the outs or they forget, what the if it's fourth down or not in every sport. So it was just kind of humorous, and I kind of felt bad for the Rangers. Here was a golden opportunity. You couldn't even get the puck away from the Bruins, which again shows me that the Islanders are definitely not ready for the big time yet. But at the end of the year, Carter, what your goal is to get in the playoffs, right? It doesn't really matter where you finish. If you finish first or not. I mean, maybe you get an advantage for home ice and stuff like that. But your goal is ultimately to get in the best of 5 or best of 3, whatever they're going to do this year. I imagine they'll go back to best of 7 or whatever it was before to give the better teams a chance to win it. But to get into the playoffs is your ultimate goal. So that's the top 4 teams in each division, if I'm correct. So
yes, yeah.
So all the Islanders have to do, or the Capitals have to do, or the Penguins have to do, is get in that top 4, and they got a chance at that Stanley Cup. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm really starting to get into it a little bit, and I'm even though it's early, just having you on every week makes me tune into at least the highlights when I get home from my real job, where I make a little bit more money than I do here. So. We appreciate you being on, all the work you do with Northeast Streaming Sports. We're waiting for your next podcast to come out, Carter, and get that up there and going. And again, Jack, you got anything else before I let the Carter man go?
No, I'm good. I'm surprised the trading deadline is towards the middle of April. I was under the impression it would be just a few weeks away. But so, I mean, I guess teams by that point, some of them who are out of it might trade a couple of veterans for draft picks and so on. And so the major sports are all, they seem to be the same in that regard. I mean, teams will be positioned at that point, and they would have determined whether they could make a serious Stanley Cup run by, now. Certainly the teams we thought would take a step forward, like the Buffalo Sabres, I mean, they're hampered by the COVID situation. But we'll have a good idea whether they're the same old Buffalo Sabres or whether they took a step forward. And and I'm not sure, Carter would know a lot better than I do, which assets could go to another team, but it's pretty predictable. The teams that are going to go in the playoffs, I guess, would be looking for established veteran players.
Right. Yeah, I think the goal is always the same. I think, like you mentioned before, Jack, the goal is always to make the playoffs. It's always to Stanley Cup. But I think at the end of the day, if you don't have a shot to do that, if you're on the outside looking in, why not try and trade a piece from your team, right? I mean, yeah, you might be subtracting a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're going to add assets. You're going to add, whether it be young players, draft picks, or even a player, that might be a little bit older but can help you right now. So I think it's always a fun time when the trade deadline rolls around, regardless of whenever it is. So I'm excited for that. That's for sure.
Carter, you as an Islander fan could rest assured Lou Lamoriello won't be patient to sit still. He's going to make some impact move at some point.
I hope so. I mean, the big move so far has been the Pajot trade, which I love personally, but we're still looking for that scoring winger to play alongside Barzy. So, I'm hoping that move comes sooner rather than later. But I guess time will tell at this point.
Well, maybe they'll bring back Derek King, from 1967, and if he still can move around the ice, they'll have a guy that can do hat tricks at least. You know what I mean? I bet you didn't even think I knew that, did you, Carter?
No, I didn't. I'm impressed.
So anyway, Carter, again, thank you for coming on. We're looking forward to your next podcast, and we're looking forward to having you on every Thursday for our hockey review and update. And you do a great job, as I said before. And you have a great day.
Thank you, guys. It was fun as always, and thanks for having me.
Take care, Carter.
So there you go, Jack. The great Carter Bedevinga is his real name. We call him Carter B because, it's a lot easier to pronounce, and it doesn't make me look foolish on the air, Jack.
You call me Jack H.
Yes, Jack H.
We'll save a little time. It might not seem like much. It's maybe 1 second, but it adds up over the course of the year, and it gives me a little more time to talk.
That little H helps you out.
Jack H.
Jack, there's one thing I've learned about you. You don't need no help on talking, that's for sure. So, folks, we got our last official timeout for today. On the other side, we got a lot more sports talk coming for you. We got This Day in Sports History. We got Jack, who will be doing what he does best, talking about different things in sports, and me trying to calm him down. So we'll be right back after this, folks. Tune in and stay with us.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again. And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Found some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should it matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink,
No, a lot of kids
don't know.
You think kids that age really listen?
You never know. But they get more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer, covering the Northeast sports scene with our focus there, even though we cover the national sports. Jack, let's take care of a couple things of business. If you guys can, please check out the NESSP website, where you'll see all the shows on Northeast Streaming Sports. We have articles. We just got a new article up from the Yankees Public Relations Department. We also carry the Giants, who they both work with us all the time. I even got on a phone conference and hope to, again this year, be on a phone conference with Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone, Jack. Northeast Streaming Sports is a network of shows that are on everything. We got our own YouTube channel. If you get a chance, go there and subscribe. A lot of great shows that we have there, Jack, that from all over the place, all down the East Coast, from Boston to Florida. We're overseas in the United Kingdom on Power 4D Sports Media Outlet. A couple of our shows are from the United Kingdom. We're working together with them right now, trying to make sure that we hear them and they hear us. We're also on Instagram, Twitter. We're on YouTube, as I said. We're on Spotify. We're on Pandora, and we're looking to get on more platforms as we go. I got another show I'm going to be talking to after the show that will probably be coming on. So we got shows coming, asking to come on all over the place, Jack, on Northeast Streaming Sports to add to what we have over there, and we're proud to be over there. And Jack, just for your information, Jack, we are going to be live at the NFL draft. We're probably going to have a special on March Madness, and we might even be at the Basketball Hall of Fame induction if they have it this year. And, of course, I can't fail to mention that we're going to have our huge boxing show coming up, and I think it's March 7th. Is that correct, Jack?
Yeah, a 50th anniversary of the first Ali Frazier fight. Actually, March 8th would have been the 50th anniversary to the day, but because we do our show Wednesday through Sunday, we're doing it as close to the 50th anniversary day as we can. And we're going to have people on the show who were actually at that fight on March 8th, 1971, talking about the event.
Yeah, it was a huge event, Jack. It was maybe the first event that was like Hollywood style, right? Where you had famous stars announcing the fight. It was publicized as a huge event where concerts were canceled so that they could have this huge event. And what a rivalry that was, Frazier and Ali. The first one, Frazier won. The second one was a unanimous kind of a decision that a lot of people didn't agree with, and Ali did beat Frazier in the last fight.
We'll talk about it more when we have the show itself. I mean, we're going to go over the rivalry, everything with Ali Frazier. It's going to be a great boxing show that we're having March 7th. So if you like boxing, you like the saga of Ali Frazier, this is going to be must listening to. It's going to be a fascinating 2-hour boxing show that we're going to have.
Yeah, and I want to thank Keith Engel for checking in from TGI Sports, Nathan Schmidt from the Safety and the Sports Writer. Thank you for the compliment. It was a pleasure having you on the Super Bowl show with us. And so, Jack, this part of the show, we normally get to where we start talking about things on this day in sports history. And there's some really good things that came up on this day in sports history. So let's get to it. Willie Pep recaptured the World Featherweight Championship on this day. And if you were to do your own top 10 of boxers of all time, Jack, I mean, you know, your knowledge and your expertise in boxing is surpassed by nobody. Would you put Willie Pep on that list?
Yeah, Willie Pep, I would, as a top 10 fight of all time. Yeah, what you're referring to, he regained the title from Sandy Sadler. He fought Sadler 4 times. Actually, Sadler won 3 of the 4. Pep may have been past this peak because Pep was in a horrific private plane accident, which he survived, but he broke a bunch of bones in his body. He came back. He was still an exceptional fighter, but he may have lost his edge. Plus, Sandy Sadler was a freak of nature. He was a featherweight, and the featherweight limit's 126 pounds. Yet Sadler was a 6-footer, approximately 6 feet, 126 pounds. And his style was wrong for Pep. So Sadler knocked Pep out in a big upset and won the title off him. And then Pep regained it on a 15-round decision, in which he put on one of the greatest boxing exhibitions of all time. And then the two fights after that were really foul-filled, dirty. One of them, Pep injured his arm and couldn't go on. The other, his eye got really bad, even though he was ahead on points, and they had to stop it because of that. I got to tell you a funny story about Willie Pep. This was at the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota in the 1990s. The executive director, Ed Brophy, asked me to do a ringside lecture with Willie Pep for the people, in which I would ask Willie Pep questions. I was excited and thrilled. I met with Willie Pep the night before, and I want to go over the program, what we're going to do. Willie Pep isn't interested. He's friendly. He says, no, don't worry, relax. We'll just jazz it up. And I'm not getting cooperation, but he's a sweetheart,
Yeah.
being very nice. But I have my list of questions. It rains overnight. I'd show up on the grounds the next morning because it had just stopped raining. Willie Pep apparently thought the ringside seminar was canceled. I'm there. The place is packed, wanting to see the great Willie Pep. He's not there. Finally, I have to start without him. And I'm talking, the way I could talk. After about 45 minutes of me talking, I couldn't take it anymore because I know the people are wondering about Willie Pep. They're smiling, they're amused by me, they're going along, they're asking questions. But I know they're all thinking, where's Willie? Where's Willie? Finally, I noticed in the crowd the great referee, Arthur McCanty Sr. He's supposed to give the next ringside seminar. I know Arthur. I call him up early, and I tell him, Arthur, just the way you save fighters in the ring, save me, pull me out of here. He came on. He started his seminar early. But Willie Pep, great guy, great sense of humor. And I also showed him a story I wrote on Gene Fulmer, in which Gene Fulmer was quoted in my story in big letters saying, getting knocked out by Sugar Ray Robinson was a blessing in disguise. Willie Pep takes the magazine. He's showing it to everyone laughing. He says, can you imagine that? Saying getting knocked out is a blessing in disguise. Like he's laughing at, how can anyone say that? But
right.
Great fighter, Willie Pep. An expensive wizard.
Yeah, I mean, he's from the old era where they boxed all the time, Jack. There was no breaks.
Oh.
There was no breaks, and his record is unbelievable.
Let me tell you a myth in boxing, Mac. Let's compare it to Babe Ruth in baseball. People argue whether Babe Ruth called his shot pointing to the stands, whether he really did it. We'll debate that another time. But it's said that Willie Pep once won a round by not throwing a punch.
Wow.
Just faking the shoulder, to this, to that. I'm not sure whether it actually took place. Some people say it did. Some people say it didn't. But it's one of the great legendary tales in the sport of boxing, the same way Babe Ruth's called shot is in the sport of baseball.
So, Jack, in 1978, and this is why I look smart with when Carter was on, Dennis Potvin records the Islanders' 25th hat trick in history. The Islanders, at one point, dominated hockey just like the Rangers did, Jack.
Listen, 4 Stanley Cups in a row, and that they have, players, Mike Bossy, Brian Trottier, great coach Al Arpa. I mean, they were just simply a great team, and I don't know whether New York ever fully appreciated them. I mean, New York makes more out of the one Ranger championship in 1994 than they do the 4 in a row that the Islanders won. But Pat LaFontaine, right. I mean, you could go on and on with the roster. Just keep it going. But it was just, an amazing team. 4 cups in a row. That was the last time any team in the 4 major sports won 4 championships in a row. Of course, the Yankees came close when they nearly beat Arizona in the 7th game, leading going into the 9th. But 4 cups in a row says it all.
Yeah, no doubt. In 1984, Wayne Gretzky sets the NHL shorthanded season scoring record at 11. We have man. Now I just had a brain freeze here, Jack. Gordie Howe is in the Wall of Fame, in our Wall of Fame, of course.
Yeah.
Gordie, that was Wayne Gretzky's idol, and Gordie Howe was an unbelievable, maybe the best hockey player of all time. You could argue that. But, I mean, if you weren't going to pick him, you definitely would pick Wayne Gretzky, who will be on the Wall of Fame soon. Has there ever been a hockey player that could score like this man, that was that graceful on the ice skating? Gordie Howe was a bruiser. I mean, Gordie Howe would take it to you, and he that's a lot of the ways he scored goals. Gretzky was kind of the opposite, right? He had protectors on the ice to let him go do his thing with the puck. Is there anybody better, Jack, that you can think of that was a pure skater?
Well, there's no one tougher than Gordie Howe. And if you want to look longevity over Gordie Howe's whole career, how long he did it for, it's the age-old argument. Gretzky at his peak, was he a little better than Gordie Howe? Probably. Gordie Howe had this long, amazing career. And Gretzky's supporting cast was a bit better, you'd have to say, all in all, with Marc Messier. When you have Marc Messier as your right-hand man, I mean, he's a superstar and an all-time great in his own right. And the Edmonton Oilers teams were so good that Gretzky was on. Keep in mind, when Gretzky went to the LA Kings and eventually left the Edmonton Oilers, the LA Kings wound up beating the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs that year. But guess what? The year after that, the Edmonton Oilers won the Stanley Cup without Wayne Gretzky, with essentially the same team that Gretzky was on.
Right.
Gretzky, an all-time great player. Was he the greatest ever? I'll tell you, I loved Bobby Orr when he was at his peak, the Golden Jet.
Yeah.
For a short amount of time. I can't say anyone's been better for a short amount of time, but you want to know something? Different positions, different situations. It's like when people compare basketball, MJ to LeBron, their style of game is so different, the way they play. It's like, if I'm going to ask you, Mac, who is a great ball player?
You're off, Jack. There you go. Well, Jack has left the studio because he knew I couldn't answer the question. Hopefully he pops back in, but I don't know where he's going with that. But Jack has come right back.
Here
we go.
Let me bring I just got checked into the boards.
Uh-oh. There
we had technical difficulty, but now we're back.
Yes.
If I get a little animated, okay? So I knocked the equipment over, I'm animated. But if I asked you a point-blank question, you couldn't answer this. Who was a greater ball player? Sandy Koufax or Willie Mays? I mean, how do you can't compare. If I ask you who is a greater pitcher, Sandy Koufax or Mariano Rivera, you can't compare. Different situations, different jobs to do. You can't say one is better than the other. But if I'm going to ask you who's a greater pitcher, Sandy Koufax or Clayton Kershaw, the argument becomes a little fairer, and the answer would be at their absolute peak, Koufax, but maybe over career, you could start switching to other pitchers because they did it longer.
I agree. It's hard to compare anybody in any sport, especially at different positions and especially at different times on different teams, because, of course, we know that, a lot of these, it's not boxing, Jack. These team sports are still involved in it. I mean, Larry Bird on the Lakers, maybe he would have won more championships than he did with the Celtics. I don't know. We'll never know that. But we can say that two of the greatest hockey players of all time would be Gordie Howe and Wayne Gretzky.
But you know who is a major superstar that no one talks about? Bobby Hall. Bobby Hall was the first player to score 50 goals, I believe. And he had the ultimate slap shot when he played in the 60s. I mean, when he was at his peak in the 1960s, they used to make a big deal how hard he could shoot the puck.
Yeah.
And I remember as a little kid going to the old garden and staying behind the plexiglass and watching Gordie Howe in the warm-ups unleash his slap shot. It was like a pitcher throwing 103 miles per hour, winding up and just letting the heat go. And at that time, if you scored 50 goals, it was like hitting 60 home runs in a season. But now a 50-goal season isn't so uncommon compared to what it was then.
Yeah, I was at the Hartford Civic Center watching the Whalers one time, and the puck actually made it up into almost the second level. I mean, it's unbelievable how far and fast these things fly. In 1990, maybe the biggest upset in boxing history, Jack. You know what I'm talking about? Buster Douglas knocks out Mike Tyson in the 10th round for the heavyweight title. Of course, Douglas was a last-minute fill-in. Whatever happened to him after that win, Jack? I mean, nobody talks. Everybody talks about him, upsetting Tyson, but they don't talk about his next fights. I imagine he had fights. I mean, that people don't know about. What happened to him after that?
He got knocked out in the 3rd round by Evander Holyfield in his next fight. He came into the ring out of shape, not motivated. He had a $24 million payday and was never the same after that. Buster Douglas was a lazy guy professionally. Lazy guy, didn't have the biggest heart or appetite for fighting. He fought for a version of the world heavyweight title. Before that, against Tony Tucker, was leading on points and basically just quit when he got tired. Now, against Tyson, he motivated himself to the heights. But even then, people forget in the 8th round of that fight, Tyson knocked him down with an uppercut. Douglas could have gotten up pretty quickly, but he stayed down for a 9 count and barely beat the count. And you wonder his level of motivation. But against Tyson, he reached for the heights, and he had a great style for Tyson. Buster Douglas had a ton of talent. And him being a big, tall fighter, he had the right style for Tyson. But after the Tyson fight, that was it. He was basically finished. Why they never had a rematch is beyond me, because I don't think Douglas could have ever gotten motivated again, and Tyson probably, I think, would have stopped him quickly had they had a rematch.
Yeah, I mean, I always wonder, because you have these fighters that, win that one big fight, and they just can't sustain it like the great ones. And I think that's the difference between greatness and, having that one good fight and being good, Jack, right? I mean, the great ones in any sport, they're consistently on top, where the ones that, for that one fight or for that one game, play out of their minds and have a noteworthy highlight. It's just to me, that's what separates any great player in any sport. I mean, say what you want about Mike Tyson, off out of the ring, or some of these other players who have, played in a little controversial. There's no doubt that Tyson, being one of the greats, was consistently great, especially in the beginning of his career, Jack.
No, Tyson at his peak was a great fighter. Don't take that away from him. Tyson's an enigma that, I mean, for whatever reason, he's so charismatic. Carlos Arturo Chavez II puts down Buster, had that reach and height that puzzled Mike. I don't know that it puzzled Mike, but Tyson knew what he had to do, but it was hard getting inside. And Buster Douglas had tremendous talent, tremendous. So let's not, he was a quality fight. When he was at his best, he was a fighter of the highest quality. His problem was motivation. He was motivated for Tyson, even though I kind of wondered in that 8th round when he barely beat the 10 count, when he could have gotten up sooner. Then the bell rang after that. And then when he came out for the 9th, he was motivated again and then stopped Tyson in the 10th. But for one fight, Douglas absolutely did hit the heights. And he was a great fighter that night in Tokyo when he knocked out Mike Tyson.
Yeah, yeah. In 1997, Bill Parcells becomes the coach of your New York Jets, Jack. To me, the greatest coach in history, and we went over that, why I feel that way. It has a lot more to do with his coaching tree than anything else. But very controversial, Jack. He wanted to call the shots. The Giants wouldn't let him. He wanted to go to he went to the Patriots, brought him to Super Bowl, wanted to call the shots. Kraft didn't let him. Then he goes over to the Jets. Right when they're playing the Super Bowl with the Patriots, that week he's talking to the Jets, ticking off Bill Belichick, believe it or not. And, then he becomes the coach of the Jets, takes the 1-14 team, one win. The next year with the same team, they're in the playoffs. I mean, this is how good of a coach he was. But that catastrophe that happened when Bill Belichick was named the coach of the Jets and turned it down that day and moved to the Patriots, kind of maybe that was how I want to say that. Maybe that was karma coming around to bite Bill right in the butt.
Let me tell you, Bill Parcells took over a team that had only won one game with the Jets the year before, and then they won 9 games under Bill Parcells' first year with the Jets. He was a great coach, and Bill Parcells had the funny line. He said, if you want me to cook the meal, you got to allow me to shop for the groceries, meaning to pick the talent. With that said, Bill Parcells, one of the great coaches in NFL history. I'm not going to argue with them, Mac. Lousy GM. Terrible. Awful. I wouldn't allow him to pick players in the draft, free agents. He has a terrible track record. He didn't want the Patriots to draft Terry Glenn. He argued with the scouting department. Terry Glenn turned out to be a great receiver for the Patriots. He wanted this lineman, Darian O'Connor, to be picked over Rodney Hampton, a running back from Georgia, for the Giants. George Young, the GM, overruled him. Rodney Hampton was a better NFL player. It turned out to be a good pick. When Bill Parcells had the number 1 overall pick in the draft and should have taken Orlando Pace, a Hall of Famer, as it turned out, offensive lineman, he traded down, tried to get cute. And the best player he got in the group traded down was James Farrier, who was nowhere close to Orlando Pace. When Bill Parcells was in charge of the Miami Dolphin organization, he should have drafted a quarterback, Matt Ryan. Instead, he goes with an offensive lineman, Jake Long, who is a great offensive lineman. But when you can get a premium quarterback like Matt Ryan, you take him when you need one. But Bill Parcells, to his credit, at least admitted that one was a mistake.
Yeah.
Which he had to do over. And that one, great coach, really not a good GM type.
Yeah, I mean, what he did with every team he went to, and no joke, except for maybe Miami, which he didn't coach Miami. He did a great job as far as building teams. He one of the first ones that I know of that really got coaches to go with him wherever he went. They were very loyal to him. And the players today, as we stated before, they're strict coaches, Jack. The players love him. I mean, we think that they have problems with him, but man, they talk highly about the Vince Lombardis, the Bill Parcells, the Tom Coughlins, and even though they get a rap.
And he did a good job. Listen, he did a good job with Dallas. People might forget, Dallas was a struggling team. He coached the Cowboys for 4 years. He got them into the playoffs 2 out of the 4 years. And maybe they would have advanced in one of the playoff games. As I recall, they were trying a short field goal, and I think Tony Romo was the holder, and he bobbled the ball or something, so they would never get the kickoff. Listen, to get Bill Parcells as my coach, I would put up with his GM shenanigans if that was the only way I could get him as a coach if I needed a coach. That's the highest esteem I hold him in. But he wasn't a good GM type at evaluating non-talent when he wasn't the coach.
So, Jack, we're getting another Thursday show. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Our great guest, John Scully, Carter B with hockey. And, Jack, we got a few more days to go. Tomorrow, we have on Byron Williams. Keith Angle will not be here tomorrow, folks, because He's got some things he's got to take care of. So we're just going to have to do our best to talk without him. I think we'll do a great job.
We'll give Keith double time when he comes back.
Yeah, exactly. He owes us a show now. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. Remember to go over to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel and subscribe to keep the network going, and you'll get shows all the time and more shows coming on as we keep growing. And again, thank you for joining us, Jack. Thank you. Have a great night, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning.